Hello, my name is Andy, and I am the village idiot, and I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. Okay, so today we're back in Bassetlaw, and I'm walking around a place which is a little bit wet and wild at the moment. There's a storm passing over. I'm really going to enjoy myself today. I'm going to get blown around all over the place. Thankfully though, there's a nice little recess here called Moorland, I want to say Avenue, I think it's Moorland Avenue, where the wind has dropped sufficiently that I can tell you that we're in the parish of Walkeringham. Walkeringham is a village and civil parish in the northeastern corner of Bassetlaw, and by default also the northeastern corner of the whole of Nottinghamshire. According to the 2001 census, it had a population of 908, increasing to 1022 at the 2011 census. Walkeringham appears in the Domesday survey under two names. Both of these are Wacheringeham, except they're spelt a little differently, one with an E and one without. The place name seems to contain an Old English personal name, that being Walhhere. Ing or ingas is Old English, meaning the people of, whilst ham means village. It possibly means, therefore, the village of the people of a man called Walhhere. The population of Walkeringham experienced an increase in the 19th century. The 1832 White's Directory recorded 116 houses and 529 inhabitants, and by 1891 it had 752 inhabitants. This would not be the only time Walkeringham's population would increase. Housing stocks were extended in the mid-1960s to accommodate the workers of West Burton Power Station. Industry-wise, bricks were made here in the 1800s and early 1900s. A little later, we'll see where they were made. Perhaps a piece of unwanted history would be that Walkeringham has been devastated by floods in recent years. The major 2007 flooding in the north of England damaged much of the village. That said, improvements to drainage are constantly being made in the area as a whole to prevent such occurrences again. So on the high street here, there's a property, or properties in fact, that's caught my eye. I'll just wait for this bus. And they're here. They've got dates above the door there. They look like little almshouses. What are they, Walkeringham locals? Or what were they, should I say? White's Directory of Nottinghamshire is always handy for villages in Bassetlaw. It goes on to say that Walkeringham extends from Gringley-on-the-Hill to Walkerith Ferry on the Trent. Regular viewers following the West Lindsey series will soon be seeing Walkerith, which is on the opposite bank of the Trent, which was connected to Walkeringham by a cattle ferry. It's no surprise that the two settlements share the same first part of their name. In fact, if you look at the map of the River Trent, you'll notice similar named places on opposite banks. Now at this northern end of the village, there's a footpath here which I'm about to take back towards the south. The village does continue a little bit further past this out to a place called, well, an area called Fountain Hill. A little bit later I'll be catching that in the car because we need to go out there anyway, because Walkeringham has some interesting features out there which we will catch before we leave here. But for now, I'm going down here. The Duke of Newcastle at one point was lord of the manor and owned a great portion of Walkeringham's land. Modern day Walkeringham is something of a commuter village now, with many families living here and working away in places like Doncaster, Scunthorpe and Gainsborough. This is backed up by its demographics. More than half of the population here are of working age, although there are a decent number of people living here in the over 65 bracket as well, some 27.8%. In total, Walkeringham covers 12.11 square kilometres, by no means Bassetlaw's biggest. This gives it a population density of 91.18 per square kilometre. 99.5% of the residents identify as white British. and the average price for a house in the village these days stands at £259,000. Walkeringham has one public house, that's the Fox and Hounds, describing itself on its Facebook page as a village pub with entertainment. The North Notts Lions meet here, a charitable service organisation of volunteers, and an international one too in some 186 countries worldwide. Public transport next, and the village is served by a number of buses. There are 5 in total, the main ones being the 97, 98 and 597. The parish church of St Mary Magdalene is 13th century. It's part of a joint ecclesiastical parish with All Saints at Beckingham, All Saints at Misterton and St Mary the Virgin at West Stopwith. The church tower was built in the 15th century using Roche Abbey stone. Also of the 15th century is the clerestory, the nave, the chancel roofs, the tower arch and an elm chest. The church has connections to Worksop Priory and by extension Henry VIII. In the north chancel aisle, there's a monument to Francis Williamson and his wife. He's listed in Thornton's Antiquities of Nottinghamshire as one of the landowners in Walkeringham in around 1612. The churchyard has some rather murderous history. In 1860, Charles Spencer, a cattle dealer, was murdered by John Fenton, a blacksmith and publican. Both men were from the village. Charles Spencer is buried in the graveyard right here at St Mary Magdalene. The village also has a small school which was recently extended with a new hall in 2010. This is on the corner of Millbalk Lane. If you walk to the other end of the road, you'll be on the A161, and at the junction is Walkeringham's playing field with a small play area. As well as being the village's largest recreational area, it's also the base for Walkeringham's village football team, Walkeringham FC. So Walkeringham, generally speaking, is on flat land, but there is this sort of hilly bit at the top where the playing field is. Just walked up Millbalk Road, which is a hill, not much of one, but a hill nonetheless, and the wind is certainly stronger up here, you can feel it. So I've just decided just to take a shelter here for a moment in the little pavilion where Walkeringham Football Club are based. Here's the village hall, which has a number of regular classes and like so many others is also available for hire. You'll find this next to the Fox and Hounds. Running through the village is a stream known as Moor Drain, which is quite wide in places. It flows in an easterly direction and into the River Trent. Here we have a medieval cross of coarsely squared ashlar on a semicircular plinth of 3 steps, close to the church. It's a Grade 2 listed stump. Also Grade 2 listed is the Manor House on the corner of Gringley Road and Beckingham Road, which dominates the southern end of the village. Here's the former Walkeringham Methodist Chapel, which is dated 1886 and is now a private residence. Arguably though, the much more interesting thing about this is the small garden next to it. In 2018, local garden designers were asked to tender design proposals and a competition was held asking local children to design a small community garden which had to be wheelchair friendly, promote better health and well-being and be easily maintained. Now this next thing looked distinctly like an area of earthworks. My research turned up nothing though. Can any Walkeringham locals help out? Walkeringham Railway Station next, which is now closed and is a private house. The station opened in 1867 and closed for passengers in 1959, although freight services continued until 1963. Trains between Gainsborough and Doncaster continue to pass through on this line. It's the same line which runs through Mizzen Springs. The crossing is similar to one we've seen before in Selby, if you can remember the Hambleton episode. In much the same way, the crossing is operated by hand, and to cross you have to obey the traffic light system. Once over the line, the end of Station Road is cut off by the River Trent. Okay, that's pretty much the main walk around the village, but as I mentioned earlier, there's plenty of other things still to see in this parish of Bassetlaw. Time to take the car firstly out to the west and then back across to the east, because there are, I think, three things, I think it's three, that are of great interest still to see. Out to the west of the village we come across a nature reserve located on the road to Gringley on the Hill. This was originally a clay pit before it then became a landfill site, and these days it's a valuable site for wildlife. The former landfill site was capped with something called river sand and seeded with an agricultural sand mix, with plantations of Corsican pine in the grassland area and a small plantation of broadleaf trees in the northeastern corner. Access to the reserve is open at all times. A circular route leads through the reserve and visitors are advised to keep to the marked track. Now the trees might be in the way slightly here, but you can see, I think, through them, there's a chimney there. That's because Walkeringham, much like Gringley, had a brickworks. Now I'm going to drive down to where that brickworks is located. It's not far away, and it's also very close to a body of water we've seen a few times on the channel too. In actual fact, there were 4 brickworks or yards at Walkeringham. 2 of them were owned by the Cowling family until they were sold in 1880 as 2 individual yards. Brickmakers in Walkeringham and nearby Gringley on the Hill made distinct white bricks as well as the standard red clay bricks and tiles. Clay would have been extracted from the clay pit at the nature reserve. We also meet the Chesterfield Canal out here as it makes its way north to West Stockwith. The brickworks location on the canal is no fluke. It was used to transport the bricks to its terminus at West Stockwith and then on to many locations via the River Trent. This bridge over the canal here, though, is not the best to say the least. I'll tell you something, I'm not very keen on being on this bridge at the moment because, as you can see, the handrail is not all that great. In fact, there are even signs that say unsafe handrail, do not use. Hawthorne Hideaway is down here too, which is a holiday let leading directly onto Brickyard Lane, a nice quiet spot for a getaway next to the canal towpath. This is an area known as Fountain Hill, where one of the brickworks was. A public elementary school was built here in 1850 by the parish vicar and was enlarged in 1914. I'm 90% sure it's this building in shot here. Right, to finish this one off, I've got a little drive for you up a road that's unsuitable for heavy goods vehicles. Now this road is the one that I was talking about earlier, the one that goes through the top part of Walkeringham, North Moor, and it's going to take us out towards Misterton to catch one more thing that's really very interesting if you're interested in the RAF. But before that, it's time for a picture bit, and here it comes right now. All of the major RAF and US Air Force air bases around the UK, together with key installations such as AWE Aldermaston and AWE Burfield, are connected to large oil refineries around the coastline. These use a massive network of underground high-pressure pipelines marked with identification posts, which look like bird feeding tables with brightly coloured roofs. This site to the north of Walkeringham and within its boundaries is one of the petroleum storage depots, or PSDs for short. This is the Misterton depot. Believe it or not, there's another one that's not too far away at Stowe Park in West Lindsey too. This depot supplies RAF stations and other military installations in the North Lincolnshire area. Okay, I've retreated into the car to do the wrap up today because the wind and the rain is starting to get stronger. I'm going to have real good fun doing my next one, which is the next village down along the main road towards Gainsborough. I'm sure you Walkeringham locals know that village very well. And I'm heading there now, and this has been the parish of Walkeringham, and I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.